Hey guys, Pheromone here. Today we're going to talk about cosplay competitions, what they are, how to enter them, and what kind of varied experiences that you might have based on your convention. Now, we'll also talk about how to survive them and how to cope them and what an award is and isn't. And I think that's a great place to start actually, because an award isn't conquering someone. It isn't context either. It doesn't tell somebody what the other costumes were that you were up against, what the judging experiences were, etc. So you don't want to think of it basically that you won, that you were the ultimate king of all cosplay, even at that particular event when there were other people who didn't get that same award, but you do want to think of it as a merit badge, as survival. And so that does make it a good experience, and that does mean you can make some really wonderful friends you might not have otherwise met, and have some great memories caught on photo, but I just wanted to have that little pretext before we get into the amazing journey that is the cosplay competition. So I hope you'll join me, and let's get down to it. So before we think about all this philosophical stuff, let's talk about what a cosplay contest is. It's basically a pageant show with two categories. There'll be the walk-ons, which is basically 30 seconds to stretch yourself on stage, and then there'll be the skit category, which is about 3 minutes or so usually in order for you to demonstrate your theatrical abilities. You'll get a chance to do choreography or a pre-recorded dialogue or a dance contest that's pretty popular. But with all that in mind, you figure there's so many entries, walk on number 10, 20, 30, etc. Probably have about a 2-hour-long cosplay contest. And as someone who's directed cosplay contests before, 2 hours is about how long we're going to get. But that doesn't mean that as an entrant, that's how long you're going to have to be there. Most of the time, most contests have a designated walk-on lineup period. The same thing goes for skits, and you've got to be there a couple hours in advance, usually about 2 hours, in order to make sure that everyone's there, that all the numbers are designated correctly so that the contest flows smoothly. It's also a chance for the director to basically talk you through everything it is you need to know about getting up on the stage, how long you have getting down the stage, etc. So, with that in mind, okay, maybe if the cosplay contest ends at 7, starts at 5, maybe you need to be there at 3. Well, unless you're born a magical schoolgirl, or a ninja, or a giant robot, you've got to get into costume. And depending on how elaborate your costume is, that's going to depend on how long it's going to take you to get into that. You're going to either have advanced makeup, maybe it's easy, maybe you just zip up the jacket and you're good to go, but if not, okay, well maybe then you need to be starting to get ready at 1. Well, you still need to eat, and you still need to shower, and you might be sharing a hotel room with several other cosplayers, and all of a sudden that schedule goes on and on and on. Other contests that are particularly very decision-oriented, they really want to make the right choice, they'll have something called prejudging. Prejudging doesn't always happen during audience seating, and it could happen even earlier in the day. It's the chance for the judges to basically take a look at your scene, see what's under there, and that can take an additional amount of time. So on any given Saturday that you dedicate to a cosplay contest, making sure that you get the right amount of sleep and everything else you need, you're going to be there pretty much all day, and by the end of that day, you're going to be really, really tired. It takes a lot of energy to keep in makeup and keep in contacts and be hydrated the whole time, and depending on how well ventilated your costume is, that's quite the undertaking. So we talked about survival, how a cosplay contest, the award isn't necessarily conquering people, but it's surviving that. Well, that's where the survival is. And so my recommendation to you is to first, when you're at home, you need to wear that costume just around the house, especially if it's like your competition costume, something that you don't want anyone to see until you're finally going on stage, and you need to make sure that it's comfortable. You need to make sure that you can walk around in it. But the other thing is, you need to make sure that you can take off at least bits and pieces of it. If you got like a mask or makeup or something, you need to be able to remove it so you can get water, food in your system, etc. And accordingly, you kind of have to treat it like a boxing match. You got to get ready on that Friday night before by resting, and that doesn't mean you have to suck away all your fun, but this is why if you don't plan ahead, you're going to be miserable, you're going to be tired, and that's not a lot of fun. The other thing is you need to know your cosplay contest rules, and so you need to check in advance, can I have this on stage? Can I have this many people on stage? Do I need to buy a badge? Sometimes cosplay contests will allow helpers in just so they can basically prop up your giant kitty head or something, whatever giant mascot costume you might have. The other thing is you need to check in to make sure you can have those sort of helpers on stage just in order to get you by. If you're blinded by limited vision or something like that, you need to make sure that you're playing it safe. So why would you go to all this trouble? Why would you completely skip out on all of Saturday at the convention for the most part, you know, depending on your costume and your experience, just to get up there, get your hopes up, and then lose out? Well, don't think of it as losing. Don't decide that you're going in there for this big trophy. Tell you what, if you go look on any trophy website, you can print yourself a trophy for like $20. You can get one of those little glass placards that says like best Naruto ever, or you can get one of those little gold statues for very cheap, and it's not about that. It's more about the experience, the excitement, the high, putting on a good show. I recommend skits for a lot of people. It takes a little bit more energy, but at least you're winning over the audience's hearts. You're always going to walk away where people are like, man, good job, you looked really cool, or you guys sounded great, or the choreography was amazing, or how'd you do that magic trick, or whatever. Skits are great because you get that group dynamic and experience, but it is stressful, and so you do have to practice, and practice is a really important part about it. But it's just not worth it going in there to win, because that's the thing, you don't know what the other costumers are going to look like. It's a subjective contest anyway, so you've got a couple of people from different slices of life with varying cosplay experience who are picking what's the best costume between robots and fairies. It's like a fighting game roster gone wrong. And so there isn't really a way to choose a favorite. You just should feel proud of what you did, about surviving, about getting the energy together and going in there and having a good time. Now that said, there are a few tips you guys can have to really maximize your experience and exposure on stage. Besides obviously preparing yourself and making sure that you can walk through and walk around on the costume well, you really need to make sure that you make good use of the 30 seconds. Now what I'm going to do is I want you to look at the little red bar on this YouTube video that basically determines how long the seconds are going by, and you have 30 whole seconds to be on stage. And so many people walk up on the stage and they pose very gallantly and then they're gone. And they pose for pretty much as long as I do. Now watch. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I may not be in line with the YouTube video, but you know what I'm trying to say. If 30 seconds is like an inch or half an inch on a YouTube video, you need to be really using that whole 30 seconds. And that's really what makes a good walk-on from a bad walk-on. You want to maximize your poses. You can practice a few poses and hold them for 5 seconds and try something else out. Really get the crowd going, show some energy. Look at what your character does. You know, figure out what it is that Haruhi would do, or Naruto, or Sasuke, or whoever you're cosplaying, and make sure that you're really feeling them and channeling them. You get a lot of cheers from the crowd. People love these animes as much as you do, and they respect the passion that you put into it. Now, the other thing you can do is make sure that you really understand the blocking requirements of the cosplay contest. Talk to one of the stage managers or the cosplay director, whoever's there, and find out, well, how far can I go out? The last thing you want to do is have somebody be like, no, you need to get pushed back while you're on stage. So if you know that stuff in advance, you can really get a lot more out of it. Walk-ons, though, there's only so much you can do with that. You can pose dynamically, and that's about it. Skits, on the other hand, practicing blocking, all the different kinds of theatrical maneuvers you can do, that's also important. But there's usually a lot of rules involved with entering on a skit, too. You want to keep in mind how many people you can have on stage at one time. What sort of fight speed movement requirements they have. You might have heard of half-speed fighting. Basically, that's if you're going to swing a punch, you need to be swinging it halfway, or excuse me, half speed. You don't need to be, like, actually jabbing people. And in my day, I've seen people violate those rules, and they've had everything from stage lights turned on, or turned off on them, to having their badges revoked, because you are violating rules that are meant to protect you and your safety. I saw a sword fight once where splinters of the actually clashing swords went out at the judging table, and I'll tell you, they didn't walk away with an award. They're lucky they didn't walk away with a lawsuit. But that doesn't mean you can't really challenge yourself, have a lot of fun. I've seen cosplayers build pretty reasonable set prop pieces where they could hide different characters behind it, or really just all kinds of little, you know, elementary school stage plays. A lot of that comes into play because you're using simple props that you can get on stage and take off. You don't want to leave any confetti, any glitter, anything like that. Sparklers are out of the question. But you can still make use of that stage and the fans' imagination. The other thing, though, is you want to be able to make sure that people can understand you clearly. You guys are hearing me pretty well because I've got a microphone, and the microphone is recording the sound waves and then putting them in a file, and then that goes. Well, you can do the same thing for a pre-recorded skit, because if not, you're either doing one of two things. You're shouting at the top of your lungs, or you're basically passing a microphone around between people, and I've seen that too, but that doesn't work either. So walk-ons and skits, those are the two little tips. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free to ask me, how can I get the most out of my skit? I've got a big group, etc. You also should talk to your cosplay director. Hey, I've got some specialized sound needs. I once helped a Mario group that had a Wii remote that played Mario sound effects with them, hook that up to our sound system so that when they jumped on the stage, they actually jumped on the stage. People are willing to respect that passion, and that's probably the moral of the story is, if you give respect, you get respect. And if you give it your all, you're going to see people really respond to you in kind. Besides that, make sure, you know, besides emotionally preparing yourself, and physically preparing yourself and training yourself to work in that costume and being ready to do on the stage. Don't get discouraged. Even though you don't walk away with anything, that doesn't make it a waste of time. People are amazed at the stuff they see. Sometimes the cosplay contest is the highlight of the event. And I'll tell you, for most events, the cosplay contest has a full crowd because it crosses so many different borders, and because maybe not everybody is into that band. They got a huge, great Japanese band from Japan, and they're all really excited about it, but like, what if you don't like that band? What if you've never seen that series? What if you've got something else scheduled? Maybe you got a photo shoot, whatever. People always fill up the halls for the cosplay contest because it's this amazing Cold War spectacle where people want to make bigger and bigger and bigger events. But those people aren't your enemies. You're not there to beat them. You're there to survive with them. And granted, one person is going to walk away with a trophy. And even if it isn't you, that doesn't mean that you didn't do the most amazing job for your character possible. So feel good, feel great. You know, make sure that you're prepared, but enjoy yourself, because enjoying makes you a real winner. And as corny as that sounds, I think that is a great primer for you guys. And I hope to see you guys at your next cosplay contest. Show me photos, send me a comment or something, let me know what's going on, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya! Be sure to subscribe for more updates. I do cosplays, remixes, vlogs, all kinds of stuff. Till next time.